The Milwaukee Bucks are currently flying under everyone's radar, and I think they're kind of tricking everyone in sports media, because if you really look at the Milwaukee Bucks, they're still in a very elite team, but nobody really talks about them or puts them in the same conversation anymore as those top tier teams. Actually, most media outlets have made it pretty much a habit to keep them outside of even the top 5 teams in the NBA, and I think that's just absolutely ridiculous, because I do think they're still a top 5 team, and I do think they're still one of the best teams in the entire NBA. And I'm not even a Milwaukee Bucks fan, honestly. I just think it's crazy how much disrespect this team gets and how little recognition they get for how good they actually are. So the first thing I really want to dive in to show how underappreciated they are, they're just not talked about at all when you talk about contenders. When the media and big personalities talk about NBA Finals contenders and teams that could potentially be winning it, they talk about all the big flashy teams that everyone likes to talk about. They have Boston Celtics, who have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum's playing at an MVP level. They've had an excellent start to their season, and really through this entire season they've been very good. Jaylen Brown has took a huge step, and all around the team looks very, very good. The Denver Nuggets just got Jamal Murray back, and Nikola Jokic is looking to get his 3rd MVP in a row, making the case for the best white guy to ever play in the NBA. And then Michael Porter Jr. is also an exciting player as well, and people have been really liking the Nuggets as well. Another team people have been talking about, the Memphis Grizzlies, who I don't think is even close to being as good as the Milwaukee Bucks from a whole team perspective, but they like the Grizzlies because they're young, they talk shit, they fight former Hall of Fame NFL tight ends on courtside, they do a lot of things like that. Then also Brooklyn Nets, they went on that crazy winning streak later, before Kevin Durant got injured. Kyrie was playing really good, but they're also exciting because you never know what Kyrie Irving is going to spew out of his mouth. And then also you have the Golden State Warriors, who everybody just loves because they have arm sleeve Steph Curry, who apparently to some people is the next Michael Jordan of the NBA. But despite not being talked about pretty much at all, they're still currently sitting at the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference, playing at a very high level, and they're definitely, in my opinion, one of the most underrated teams in the NBA, because how can you not talk about the 3rd seed in the entire conference, even when Middleton has missed pretty much the entire season this year, and he's only played in 7 games, and they're still the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. It's insane that they are not talked about at a higher level than they already are, and if you're going to be the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, it is almost a given to be a top 5 seed in the NBA, because the Eastern Conference this year is way better than the Western Conference from a top to bottom perspective, and it's not even close. The East is stacked this year with talent, and for them to be a top 3 seed without their debatably 2nd best player in their lineup pretty much the entire year, and even Giannis missing a few games as well, it shows you how good this team actually is built and how good they can be when they are fully healthy. And then even going a little bit deeper into how good this team actually is, they're a top 5 defense in the entire NBA, and they're the whole saying, defense wins championships. That is exactly what the Milwaukee Bucks have been doing over the past few years. They consistently had very good defenses led by guys like Jrue Holiday and Giannis, who are just extremely good on that side of the ball. Now, yes, their offense hasn't been anything special this year, but they're also, like I said, missing their 2nd best scorer in the entire lineup, who's at his best an all-star level scorer in Chris Middleton. So I think for sure that this team could even be better than what they have currently been if they could just get fully healthy. And a big part to why this team is so underrated when it comes to media and everything is because these stars on this team actually are underrated as well. What I mean by this, if you look at a guy like Jrue Holiday has been underrated for basically his entire career, and it's kind of a tragedy because he's been an all-star level guard for years and years. And as a Pelicans fan, I love Jrue Holiday and I know what he brings to a team from a winning perspective. He just makes all the right plays, and this year he's probably having his best year since joining the Bucks, giving the Milwaukee Bucks 19 points per game, 1.5 steals per game, 7.4 rebounds per game on 5 assists per game, and he's doing that on great efficiencies as well. And what makes Jrue Holiday so good is that he's not just a scorer that can give you 20 points a game at the point guard position, but he's also a guy that can lock down basically anyone he is guarding. He's one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA, hands down. And when players are asked who the most underrated player in the NBA is consistently Jrue Holiday. You can look up interviews and people asking that question. Jrue Holiday gets answered that a ton of the time, and it is true because he does so many things the right way. He plays the right way. He helps you win games, and he's also a bucket while doing it as well. well. And then even Chris Middleton is a extremely underrated scorer when he is healthy. Now that when he is healthy part has been a huge question mark for the past few years, because as you know, last year in the playoffs he didn't play a game for them, and he's only played 7 games to start this season so far as well. So if they need to get him back fully healthy for this team to be at that elite level tier that we know they can be at, but if Chris Middleton does get back, and assuming he will eventually get back healthy, this team could be firing on all cylinders, and Chris Middleton is just extremely underrated for how good of a scorer he actually is, and I think that he really does deserve a little bit more credit than he actually does get, because the Milwaukee Bucks desperately needed him last year in that 7-game series against the Boston Celtics, and that's probably the reason they lost, because they didn't have a secondary scorer that can just score whenever he needs to and whenever you need him to. And even kind of just for this year, Giannis himself has been getting a lot of disrespect that just kind of is unwarranted. Now, it's insane to say that a 2-time MVP like Giannis is at any way underrated, because he's not underrated. I just think this year he's been getting a lot of disrespect for basically no reason. Now, yes, he's had a few bad games this season, but I mean, to expect a player to just never have a bad game is very unrealistic, even if for someone at the caliber of Giannis. And also people saying that Giannis might be getting figured out, or like he's just not that good, is just stupid. He won 2 MVPs. We've seen him be dominant for years. Teams did not just figure out how to guard him. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And yes, he's missing a few games, but before he missed those games, he was still playing at an extremely elite level. He was giving them 1 steal per game, 1 block per game, about 4.6 assists per game, 9 rebounds per game, on 31 points per game as well. So I mean, to say that he has been bad by any means is just kind of blasphemy at this point. Like, there's no way you can look at Giannis and how he's played this year outside of a few games and say he is having a bad season in any way. And I just think overall the disrespect he's been getting has been completely unwarranted. And kind of the last thing I want to just get into a little bit is the fact that we just know that they can win, and I think it's super disrespectful to not have them in top 5 when we know how good they can be when they're fully healthy. Just 2 years ago, they literally won the NBA Finals, and to get to the NBA Finals, they had to go against the Miami Heat, who were very good at the time and still are very good, the Brooklyn Nets, who still had James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie all on that team. Then they also went against Atlanta, who was red hot that year. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals somehow. Trae Young was playing on a different level, and they were able to beat him. And then they even beat the Phoenix Suns fully healthy when they were in the NBA Finals, and it was like a 4-2 fashion. Like, it wasn't even that close. So we know how good and dominant the Milwaukee Bucks can be when they are fully healthy. And then even last year, although they did lose in the second round of the playoffs, they lost to the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series, and the Boston Celtics went to the NBA Finals, and they lost to the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series, and it was extremely close, despite them not having Chris Middleton the entire time. So they almost beat the team that made it to the finals without their second best player on their roster, which is extremely impressive for any team to be able to do. And so we know how good this team can be when they're fully healthy, and if they can get fully healthy, they should be able to be probably almost the finals favorites, maybe outside of Boston, to win out of the Eastern Conference this season. But unfortunately, guys, that's my first video, so comment below. Do you agree with me? Do you think that the Milwaukee Bucks are getting a little disrespected, a little underrated? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the video, hit like button and subscribe button. It would mean the absolute word to me, and I hope you have a blessed day. Can I have a blessed day? See you, have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo, blah, blah.